Hank, you still there?
The meeting, if you want to do that. I'm gonna
Yep. We lost you for a
recording
second.
this to the cloud. Yeah, can you see me?
Yeah, your video's frozen and your
Okay,
audio's
well, that's probably
glitching.
because I had to start recording it. Okay. How
Okay.
about now?
I think it's about as good as we're going to get.
Yeah. So it's recording to the cloud, so the minutes can be taken. Heidi will get the minutes off of this.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and start, Michael, that would be fine.
Yep. We'll call to order at 7:02, and we'll start with roll call around the room. We'll start with, I guess, Sheldon.
Okay, Sheldon Cohn.
Sorry, who else do we have?
Jill
Blake.
Plamper.
Blake Moore.
Rick Polan, but just to let you know, I'm on my phone right now. I don't have power, so I might cut in and out.
And we have Jill.
Jill Ingber.
Okay, is that it for the commission, Hank?
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've got Rick, I've got Jill, I've got Jill, I've got Shell, I got Blake, and I've got you.
Okay.
Chris Golembiewski.
Okay.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Blake.
Okay.
And one more added to my my call.
Oh, Laura Golembiewski.
Laura.
Okay, David's signing in right now. Okay. Okay. So Mike,
You're good on roll, Hank?
yeah, I've got the planning commissioners on, so.
Okay, so we've got an approval of agenda, but we have a request to move item 6, swap items 6 and 5 to get the site plan approval first out of the way. Looking for a motion to do that.
So move.
Who was that?
Second?
Shell.
That was Sheldon.
Okay.
Give a second.
I'll second. It's Blake.
Thank you, Blake. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? Or do we have approval otherwise? Okay.
Can we say something?
Sorry? So we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Jill
Thank you.
Plamper.
Can we get a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved. Next, we've got approval of the minutes from April 27th, 2020. Any additions or edits?
Yeah, I have a question. My recollection is that we made a formal motion to waive the 5-plan limit for this meeting because I thought there would be more plans on the table. And I know that it's kind of moot at this point, but that motion was made and passed, as I recall.
Okay, I'll get Heidi to correct it if that's what it was. I thought we had a general discussion by consensus, or there was an actual motion. Okay,
Okay.
I'll get her to change. I'll get her to change that, Sheldon.
All right, move to approve the minutes as amended.
Can we get a second?
I'll second. Jill
All in
Plamper.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, minutes carry. So first up, we have site plan approval for a new house at 10135 Kingston by Hillen Homes. Patrick, are you gonna take us through it? Nope, Patrick, you're on mute.
Patrick, you're muted.
I think he
Okay, there we go.
There
Sorry
you
about
go.
that.
off because I don't have anybody on mute.
Trying to do things like, you know, the way we've done in the past in person. I'll do my best. just basically in keeping with, you know, the past approvals and things that we've done. We kind of know what you guys want to see, and Dan and Rhiannon are in that window there, and they're the homeowners. And we pretty much tried to, you know, follow the rules. And I think what we've achieved here is a good looking plan. I think it'll fit well in the street, fit well in the neighborhood, obviously, and open for input.
Okay, Hank, anything to add?
Yeah, I do have a couple things that I do want to take you through on this because there are a couple questions. One is we're still waiting for some final corrections on the actual survey, and they're working with Tim Germain from Nowak and Fraus, who's our consultant for that. And nothing that they're going to do should change the look of the building. It'll just maybe change the height of the grades and how the grades are done. So any motion to approve, if you know you're happy with the rest of the project, should be made subject to final grade approval by Nowak and Fraus. And they are our city consultant. I just want to make sure that that's taken care of. Other than that, the couple things that I just want to point out to you folks and see if you wanted to address them with Mr. A or not, is that if you take a look on page 3 of 4 on the north elevation, the gables that we have there show 3 different half timbering patterns. So I'm wondering if that was intentional or if that's something that they wanted to consolidate so that the front doesn't look as busy. That's one question. The second question is we also have 2 kinds of mutton bar patterns there. We have the crosshatch diamonds and the standard mutton pattern that we have. And we carry that around to the east side elevation for 2 windows. And except for the gables up top that have the little windows in it, it's nowhere else on the house. So that was another question that we had for them on that. Other than that, the framing around the door doesn't seem to match really anything else, but the house is brick. The only other question that came to mind when I was looking at this was on the west elevation towards the front, in front of the chimney, there's stucco half timbering in a different pattern. And that's the only place on the side other than the gables that it's not brick. So I'm wondering if on the side, if they wanted to continue that up in brick and it would be a more consistent look. Other than that, I believe that's pretty much what I have that I recall right now.
Okay, Hank, can I go to one thing with you real quick? Are you talking about the west elevation where the front stucco wraps around? Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason that that is there, and I can answer this now because we did this in design, is because I just didn't like the way the corners came together. It just looked too production. So I wanted to wrap it around the corner so you weren't actually just meeting brick with stucco.
Okay, the only question that I have with that is, and that's fine, the explanation is whatever for the planning commission. I wanted to point it out because it's the only place in the house that does that. So if, you know, I mean, those are the points that struck me as a little bit different. The deck feature off the second floor, I actually like. I've got one. It's a great feature. But, you know, I mean, those are the things that I wanted to address. The height is a little taller than anybody else in the neighborhood, except for 2 houses, but it's legal. So I wanted to point that out. You did hit your architectural bonuses. Your square footage is okay. Your lot coverage is okay. Again, we're just waiting on final grade approval from Nowak and Fraus. And if the Planning Commission had any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Sorry, quickly, Hank, there are a couple comments. Someone's looking for, I guess, drawings of the home on the website. They can't find it.
They're under the Planning Commission agenda.
You see it, Chris?
No, I'm on the website right now. I don't see, I'm under the planning department. but it's not, I don't see anything.
Okay, and here, let me see if I can. Maybe easier if I just email it to them. Okay. Agenda and minutes. Agenda. Boards and commissions. Planning. Agenda. It's under the May 26, 2020 agenda packet.
All right. What is we're under city services, planning department? Are we in the wrong place then? I see your name
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
right.
you are.
Okay.
On the left side, and again, I apologize to the planning commission for taking this, but it's on the left side, there's a thing that says agendas, boards and commissions. You want to go to the planning commission where it says boards and commissions. You want to go down to the
Okay, I think we're in the wrong place. That's okay. We don't want to hold the meeting. We just live across the street, so that's all right. We just wanted to, but maybe we can just get it sent to us later.
No, I get it. On another note, do you guys have power?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's funny. This is Travis across the street. We don't have power.
Okay. I live on Kingston too, and I don't know if I have power. That's what I was asking. Okay, go ahead.
Thank goodness. All right, thanks. Just go on with the meeting. We'll find the stuff later. Thanks.
I can email it to you guys if you want to email me an email address. Just shoot me a blank email, and I'll return all the plans to you.
All right, thank you. You can go on with the meeting then. Thanks.
Hank, I do have one question. I see that they're under on house size, but they're slammed right up against the lot coverage. Is there anything we're not seeing?
No, the lot coverage, the final determination, they're at 18, and I've gone back and forth with them on this. With our final number comes in just, and I mean just, within to like 10 square feet of your lot coverage max. So there won't be anything else that they can add to that.
Okay. Okay, all right, that's it. I guess we'll open it up to public participation.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. This is Pamela Klozik. I'm a neighbor next door to this build.
Could you just give us your...
10125.
Perfect, thank you. Just need your address.
10125 Kingston.
Thank you.
Yes. And I had a couple of questions. Now, just with the information you gave us that the existing height of the house, what is the roof line height that's allowable from one house to the next? Because I'm a much smaller house next door.
It doesn't go from one house to the next. It goes to a zone district. 30 feet is the maximum.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. The next question is, I noticed on the plan that it looks like all the trees will be taken down except for one that is on the fence line, which neighbors my yard. And in the plan, they are suggesting putting up a new fence line, which I welcome. But this tree, are they going to build the fence around the tree, or is the fence going to be more in my lot? You know, because it seems like everything is on the line, and a couple inches here or a couple inches there can be a big deal. Because I'm grandfathered in with this old house that I am pretty close to the lot line myself because the house is old.
I'm looking at the prelim right now, the survey right now.
Okay.
Hey, Pam, just so that you know, just so that you know, they can't build on your property. So the fence will be on their property. If they build up to the tree, they may leave a little bit of space on either side of it for the tree to grow. But they can do that, but they can't put a fence on your property without your permission.
Okay. Because it's kind of a quirky corner in the back. There's a telephone pole in the back corner.
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything.
Of course there
really
is. So that's a little tricky, right? So the fence would have to go in between there, and then as it comes toward the street in the cadence, there's one tree left, and that's right on the boundary thing. So I was like, well, where's the fence going to go is my question.
They're showing a proposed silt fence on the, that's like the black dots that you may have seen on there. That doesn't stay.
Yeah,
that doesn't stay. That's just to keep the soil erosion from going on your property so that your property doesn't become muddy when they excavate.
But there was a suggestion of a was it slotted fence? Did you see that?
Well, they have an existing board fence located at the back. They have a silt fence on the side, which is closest to your house. Okay.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, they have an existing board fence, which is already there.
Okay. So there.
I think what you're reading is the silt fence.
So my guess is they would put it. Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. A silt fence is just simply to keep the soil on their property and to keep it off your grass.
Okay. And then when they clear the lot, there's a lot of stuff along that fence line, and it is one of the old fences of this neighborhood. So how does it go about? I have a dog. If it's a wired fence, and the only thing that's holding it up are trees and everything that's on their side that's grown into it or whatever. So it's so how do I, with this big construction going on, how does that play out?
Well, it depends. There's two factors here, and then Patrick, I'll let you address what you might want to do to help the situation out.
Sure.
The trees that are on the property line are a shared responsibility between the two. If he's going to excavate, what's going to happen is that he's allowed to excavate on his property. Those trees are likely going to die. So if you want, what would behoove both of you to do is maybe have a conversation before and make sure your guys are okay with, what, when, and how it's coming out. And then I don't know if Patrick has any plans for a fence on this site, but it's not shown on the site plan. A silt fence he does not need a permit for. It's highly encouraged by the city. And he'll actually have a fence around the property while it's being built. I don't know if you saw the house that he just built on Talbot, but he puts up a nice 6-foot fence around it so people can't get in and stuff can't get out. So there's no worried about neighborhood kids walking in, falling into a hole or into a construction site. And Patrick was pretty good about that when he did the Talbot house for us.
Okay, correct. Well, great. I just didn't know how that was because there are a lot of goofy things.
Yeah, Patrick, did you want to add anything to that, or are you good?
No, I mean, we obviously when you build in the cities the way we do, and you're in tight confines, we do the best to be social neighbors. I don't want to cause any issues, and I'll have a direct line of communication with you through the entire process. If you have anything that you need, you can call me, and we'll get out there as quickly as we possibly can. But we try to limit that kind of thing.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Just, it's my friends have that ground has never been dug in before. You're in an old house, and all, it's been around a while, 1923 or whatever, and I've had no problems with it. So, just asking the question.
We don't want them down.
What?
We're all about keeping the house up. We won't take anything down.
It's actually very
wonderful.
Cool. It's one of my favorites in the city.
it's been around a while. So, yeah, so I was just, curious about things like that. So now I understand the fence situation. And then what I thought was a really great thing is that they're putting a curb on the driveway all the way. How far down does that go to keep the water from, running into my house? There's a curb on the driveway to direct water. How far does that go? Does that go from the garage all the way down, or from like the narrow part all the way down?
You're 10125, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she's east.
Okay, so what we do is the driveway pitches, and then we drain the water to the street. It will, I think that's curb, right, Hank?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
What's going to happen is where you're showing, and I'm guessing here, you're probably about 8 feet behind the rear corner of the house and just a little bit further forward than the front of the house. And that'll keep all the water that would normally be in the narrowest area of it and redirect it towards the street. So realistically, with this design, Pam, you shouldn't get any water. But I'm waiting for the final weight approval from Nowak and Kraus.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so those two play into each other. Excellent. All right, so that was that question. I'm still without power, and there was a couple neighbors without power, and they had asked me to ask the question of how long typically does it take for a house like this to be built? And there's some little kids across the street and next door, and they were just asking what the hours typically for building are.
Generally speaking, this house here will take probably between 10 and 12 months. And we work inside of the city's confines for hours, which, Hank, are what? I can't remember now.
The hours that you have in order to do that are 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. There's no Sunday construction noise allowed.
What was the beginning hours? I got the 9 p.m.
8 a.m.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
And this is Travis Wright next door at 10145. When about do you think construction is going to start? When does ground get broken?
I'd love to do it as quickly as I possibly can.
That's going to depend on what the planning commission says tonight.
Sure.
And how fast they get in for a permit.
Okay. And I'm glad, Pam, that you asked a little bit about the trees and whatnot. After all, this is Huntington Woods, and a lot of us moved to the neighborhood because of the trees and the woodsy feel that we love so much. And I know this isn't necessarily building related, but I know that the homeowners are on the line. Is there going to be any plan, or is there a plan now to plant some trees to, not only add to the woodsiness of the neighborhood, but also just to help out with water remediation as well? Us being next door, we're worried that, we don't want our backyard to basically turn into a lake when it rains. And a couple of these old growth trees definitely help with that. So I was just curious what the plan was there.
I'm going to defer to Dan on this because I don't know what your later landscape plans are.
Preliminary right now, I think our plan is to at least have, I know there's one tree that's on the easement currently for the city. We want to put another one in the front yard and then probably another one in the backyard if possible.
Yeah, our plan is to have a couple of arborvitaes and things like that. I mean, we love the trees in Huntington Woods, and so we don't want to do anything to detriment those.
Cool, that's great to hear. It's also good to see your guys' face. Do you guys have any kids?
Not yet, no.
No, we just have one giant St. Bernard puppy.
Yeah, so we have a dog as well.
Great.
Oh.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
This is Steve Hurwitz with 10115 Kingston. Also say welcome to the neighborhood. I have two questions, neither of which are actually house related. So there's good news on that front. One is just in light of the power outage issues, I just want to raise again for the public record that a lot of people on the street are suffering a power outage right now and are unable to attend this meeting. I don't know if that has any impact for the Planning Commission in thinking about next steps, but I at least wanted to raise that it sounds like a number of the neighbors were able to get on at least by phone, which is great. I'm up north and was asked to relay the message since I would be able to participate by computer. So I'm relaying the message that there are a number of people on the block who are without power and were unable to participate in the meeting today. The other concern that I have is, frankly, that lot over the last year or two has struggled in terms of maintenance and proper mowing. And that grass has gotten quite long and remains quite long today. It gives me a little bit of concern about what this will look like in terms of maintenance from a neighbor perspective moving forward. So I guess I would just ask the Planning Commission, I know it's not your grounds to say you require mowing or things like that, but I would ask you to, think about that, and maybe Mr. Ray can address that, but I do think better maintenance of that lot is needed before construction and while construction is ongoing.
Here, here.
Yeah, there's no question.
Dave?
Rhiannon has brought it to our attention that it's long. We are cutting that either tonight or first thing in the morning. And just from a reputation perspective, job site maintenance is a big thing for me. We have crews that come in all the time and clean. Numbers on the sign. If you see something unsightly, call me or email us, and we try to get everything taken care of within 24 hours.
Great, thank you, and welcome again. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, any more public participation before we close it and move on to the commission comments? Okay, that said, public participation is closed, and I'm going to go off my list here in front of me. So we'll start with David. David, you're on mute.
Michael, for
Sorry.
the record, Jeff Jenks signed on too.
Oh, he is. Okay, thanks.
No, I have no comments on the house itself at all.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Rick.
No comments on the house itself. I think it's important that we get the grades right, and I think relying on Noack and Frous is good. Other than that, I know it's timely to get approved and start construction since there's been so many delays with COVID right now. So no issues at this time.
Thank you, Rick. Blake.
So I'd actually like to circle back to some of Hank's initial comments, because I thought, and maybe they were addressed and I missed it, but I just thought there were some valid conversation points there that I'd like Mr. Ray to address if he could.
Well, as you know, Hank and I talked about these two gables, both the porch portico and the one above the bedroom window there on the front elevation. And they are slightly different. I'll go again to Dan and see if Dan, what are your thoughts on those, and maybe making them the same so we have a little less busyness going on in the front of the house. Because if you look, one of them kind of arches and the other one is straight. So potentially you could address the commission on that, and the window grills.
So at least on those features in the front there, we honestly prefer, we liked them to be arched, but as we talked before, Patrick, I know with the front porch, it's maybe a difficult feature with it being, because it's passed through, it's not solid there. But I guess we can circle back on that again and discuss that. As far as
potentially, we have to work something out with making the one up in the porch curved also.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be our preference if we could do it. As far as the windows go, it's not a true Tudor revival, but that was the inspiration for the house. And on those homes, typically there is a combination of grid and diamond pattern, and that's kind of where that inspiration stemmed from. We really enjoy the way that's currently set up, but if there's a major concern, we can always discuss if certain windows, have to go one way or the other.
Just to add a comment to that, on the Tudor revival structures, when they have the diamond pattern, typically those are leaded glass.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you have a Tudor revival, that's typical of those. when you have like the standard pattern, that's more of a colonial, and the revival features, hence the stucco half timber, the open front portico, those type of features, which are typically, as well as the chimney cap, which is really nice looking, by the way. Those are all features that are typical of Tudor revival structures. So that's kind of what I'm saying. The only thing with the windows on the front is that you have 3 on the front and 2 on the one side of gables. So I just pointed it out because it made the front look a little bit busy, but that's for the planning commission to decide. I don't get a vote, but I do point things out.
I got you.
Okay, anything else, Blake?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just in a general sense, like I to Hank's point, and this is no disrespect to the design, I feel like there's a little bit of a lack of continuity in the lines. It's not quite a true Tudor revival. That is, you know, that's just to my eye. So I don't have any comment other than that.
Yeah, and we're not claiming it to be a true. Like we said, the house is definitely that was the inspiration for the house, but it's definitely a colonial in essence with Tudor elements.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Blake. Sheldon.
The only other thing I would like to add is I just think it's important that for the neighbors who are unable to sort of be present and see the drawings, I think it is important that they have the opportunity to see and comment, for those either who do not have power or are unable to be in attendance.
Good point. Okay, thank you. Sheldon.
Sure. My own point is that the difference between the gables doesn't impact me one way or the other, nor do the mutton bars in the windows. I noticed that the drawing page 2 of 4, the upper right-hand corner indicates a cantilever deck. Now, the drawing seems to say that that's a deck over the back of the garage, I think. No, up the nook.
It's over the nook.
Yeah, I mean, my impression was, and I may be remembering inaccurately, I thought that cantilevers were frowned. Is that truly a cantilever if it's on the structure below it, or does it extend beyond the structure below it?
It extends beyond the structure below it, and cantilevers typically will go in twice as far as they come out. If they put posts on it, there wouldn't be a cantilever at all. But currently, we don't take the same tone with cantilevers that we did years and years ago.
Well, I was here years and years ago, so that's what I'm recalling.
I know, that's why I'm saying that.
How far does it? Yeah, so were you. How far does it extend over the nook? Yes, the nook.
I don't have sheet 2 right now. Hold on.
You're looking at a 5-foot outside the structure, Sheldon.
Okay.
5 foot from the.
Okay. This is a question for Hank, I guess. Will the survey, where's the height measured from? Height of the structure?
Grade.
Okay.
Grade.
Will it change? You indicated there was going to be a grade relating to this, pardon me, a survey relating to the grade. Is that going to change the calculation?
It won't change the calculation above 30 feet because we won't let it. So what we're trying to do is I want to nail down these, and when the architect drew it, he didn't box the new changes, the new grades, the proposed grades, and the other, he did it with a fade in, fade out, which is not typical. I can read it on the hard copy. Nowak and Frous couldn't read it on theirs. So Tom Smith, the surveyor I talked to today, is going to box those, or at least I forwarded it to him. He's going to box those. And realistically, I won't issue a permit until I have approval from Nowak and Frous.
Okay, because I'm just curious which way the grade will go, whether it'll increase the height or there'll be increased grade so that the height is
It
accurate.
won't increase the 29 feet 7,
Okay,
because we won't allow that. They're out of space, so. And they can't
Okay.
mound it up because then they'll be directing water to the other side. That's why Nowak and Frous has to give a final sign off on it. I also, just so that you know, Nowak and Frous also signs off on as-built. At the end of a project, Patrick will provide us with as-built, and the grades that he has on the as-built will match the grades on the proposed that may or may not be approved this evening, or by Nowak and Frous.
okay. My other question had to do with the blank space. It appears to be on the west side of the master bedroom. There seems to be a fairly large blank space without a window.
Are you talking about the east side elevation, Sheldon?
Yeah.
Okay.
And same thing on the what's identified as the left side of the garage.
Okay. To answer your questions, we've never really enforced fenestration on a detached garage. But in the back side, you're talking about the back lower or the upper between the two windows?
I'm talking about what's identified as the west elevation appears to be the front of the house on the left side, second floor.
Where the stucco
Oh,
is?
on the west side where the stucco is?
Yeah. It seems to be a fairly broad expanse without any, unbroken by any window. That's not a make or break for me. I'm just pointing it out. And also, same thing on the left side of the garage.
I can address the west elevation of the main house.
Yeah.
If we put a window in there, you wouldn't have any furniture walls in that bedroom.
Wouldn't have, pardon?
You wouldn't have any furniture walls. Every room would, every wall would have either a closet, a door, or glass.
Okay. Patrick, at least in terms of what I understand the Planning Commission criteria is, has nothing to do with the interior usage. And we're almost entirely involved with the exterior. And I appreciate your comment. I'm not questioning it. I'm just pointing it out to the commission.
Yeah. One other thing too is that just for the discussion point on that, because I brought that corner up as far as the stucco half timber not being consistent with the elevation on that side. You can look at that one of two ways. You can say, Hank, you're right, and there probably should be brick there to bring out the balance to that side since it's the only spot of the wraparound. Or you can take a look at it and say, well, there's an architectural break and they've added the stucco half timbering on that side, and that creates enough interest that a window may not be paramount. So that's up to you guys.
Okay. All right. I mean, other than that, it's a nice house. I like it very much, and I appreciate the investment in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheldon. Jillingber.
Hi, forgive me. I'm looking at the plans on my phone. So I echo a lot of the same concerns on. For me, aesthetically, the mutton bars on the windows seem. I tend to agree that it's busy to have the competing designs, and I appreciate the interest in like a Tudor style, but again, I don't think that accomplishes it. And I think the placement of which ones were diamond versus, it just seems kind of arbitrary to me. So either I think it would have to be more strategically placed, or we go one way or the other. But I don't know that that's a reason to hold this up. It just might. Aesthetically, when I look at it, it seems very busy that way. I also, it's interesting, when Sheldon was talking about the fenestration on the west elevation, I had concerns on the east elevation. I thought there's a big stretch of brick on the east elevation on the second floor between the windows. Thought we could have used more there. And I guess I'd have to go back and look to see what's on the interior there. I don't know, but so those are my, I guess, concerns at this point.
Okay, thanks, Jill. Jill Plamper.
Okay, so for me, I actually live in a Tudor. So one of the first things I want to address is the front of the house. You guys were talking about, I hope you weren't talking about eliminating the curved element in the Tudor work, because that's actually something that my house has, and I have a 1927 Tudor. So I think that I like the curved accent in the timber framing. However,
Yeah, that's what we'd like to keep as well.
Yeah, however, I would agree that you need to try and duplicate that on your porch.
I think that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to talk about that, but I think, Dan, we can say tonight that we agree to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can agree to that.
In the first place anyway, so
Okay.
we can do that.
So but one of the concerns I have on the front of the house is actually you have what looks like a bay coming out. And above the bay, instead of bricking above the bay and having the Tudor work on the second floor only, you've extended it down into the first floor. And typically a Tudor, I don't believe, would have the stucco and timber framing in the first floor. It's usually mostly up on the second floor. So I'm wondering why you chose to, if it was just for ease of build or what, because I actually think that extending that down into the bay window area looks a little awkward.
Is that doable, Patrick? I think the one thing that Tim had concerns about was not being able to get a brick molding on there to be actually able to support the brick above the bay windows there. Is that?
You can get a lentil to do that.
And throw an L-beam in there. Yeah, lentil.
Okay.
That would be the process.
I'm just saying that from my point of view, I know you're trying to make it look like a Tudor, and a Tudor would not necessarily have that down on the first floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, we had that conversation before, and our architect was having concerns that we might be able to properly support the brick in there, but if Patrick can do it, that might be something we could change to.
Okay. As far as the mutton bars, the diamond pane versus the squares, so my house has the squares, but I also have leaded windows throughout. I know there's a number of Tudors around the neighborhood that have some of the diamond panes thrown in as an accent. You seem to be, you're using it in a couple different places. It doesn't really bother me. I know it seems to bother other people. It doesn't really bother me, but normally I think that's normally used as an accent. But it does add some interest. And I think that something that, as you look at these pictures or the renderings of the house, it looks very busy from the front. And I think it looks busy because the way you have rendered the stucco work shows it with multicolors, right? It's because you're showing shadowing of the stucco. And so I think that makes the house look busier in the picture than it will actually be in reality.
Agreed.
So I just would caution about the people that are concerned about the busyness of it. I think it's because of the artist renderings that you're looking at. One of the questions I would have about the stucco is, are you using actual stucco? Are you using a stucco board? What are you using?
It's a hardy board, I believe.
Stucco, it's a board. It's a 4x8 sheet that comes out, and then we cut it to fit.
A cement board?
It is a James Hardy board, yes.
Okay, all right. So then moving on to some of the other concerns about the fenestration on the other sides of the house. When I look at the west elevation and I look at the windows on the top, on the second floor, they seem very small.
So the one next to the chimney is coming out of a laundry room, which
Okay.
is, that one's about properly sized. And the other two there are on either side of where the master bedroom's bed's going to sit.
Understood, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that proportionally, the windows on the second floor of the house look small.
I got you.
Okay.
So proportionally, they just look like they're tiny.
Okay.
And then similarly on the east side elevation on the first floor, so it's kind of odd. So the west side elevation, the windows are bigger on the bottom and seem really small on the top.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the east elevation, the windows on the top floor are bigger, and on the bottom, on this first floor, they're smaller. So
Right.
it's just it seems a little jarring. Just something to think about. And I'm pretty sure that's my only comments. My main concern was actually the Tudor work over the bay window, because it shouldn't be there. The stucco board over the bay window, because it shouldn't be there. And I'd like you to carry the curbing through, like you've already agreed to, onto that front porch.
Sounds good.
And that's all I have.
Thanks, Jill.
I can make those changes.
Kim.
I don't think I'll say anything that hasn't been said, but for the record, I would agree that the front elevation, the north elevation, feels busy, and I'd love to see the curve over the porch and maybe eliminate a couple of those diamond windows, minimize the stucco to just the second floor and upper eave. It does just feel busy, and I don't think that's just the rendering. So I would say simplify those elements. And on the east side elevation, that's where I had concerns on the fenestration as well. I believe on the upper floor, you've probably got some bathrooms there, and it looks like from the original sale plans, that's reconfigured a little bit. So I don't know if you can add a window in the shower or something else along there between those two windows. And on the back side, you'd, again, on Hillen's original sale drawings, there were some windows in either the drop room or the pantry. And I would encourage something towards that left side of the east elevation as well. Everything else, I think, is, I mean, in general, I like where you're going and what you're doing with it. It's a nice addition and a nice nod to some of the other historic homes in the neighborhood, but I do think it just needs a little fine tuning.
Makes sense.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Jeff. Jeff, you're on mute. There we go.
I think, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can.
Okay. My only concern, which doesn't seem to be as big with everyone else, was the stucco room on the second floor. I just felt that was overdoing it, but if it doesn't bother anyone else, then I'm not that concerned. The other thing is on your south elevation, take advantage of the sunlight, and the same is true on your east elevation. Some of the windows, to me, although you've explained what's behind them, just remember once you build the house, it becomes hard to increase your window size for light. On the inside, especially on that second floor, if you guys don't want the house, I would love it. I love your bathrooms. I love your master bathroom. But I'm not as excited by the heavy amount of stucco that you're using. And I grew up in a house that was 100% stucco. So I'm not against stucco, but I'm just driving down the block and some other blocks. You're sort of over stuccoed from my point of view.
Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for that input.
Thanks, Jeff. I think I hit everybody. Did I miss anybody on the commission? Oh, okay.
You, Mike.
I would, yeah, okay. I don't know that I have anything new to add. I would echo what everybody else said. It's a very, very busy design. And if it looks busy on paper, it's going to look far more busy when it's built. I don't see anything on here that, you know, would necessarily stop it, but my advice would be to calm the house down. It's gonna be very, very busy, especially from the front.
Mike, could I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Okay, and since Dan is on and Patrick's on and everything, on the front of the house, if you were to make a motion that would include the curvature from the outside gable represented on the front porch and the two diamond-shaped windows above the front porch returning to the regular configuration, keeping the accent window next to the front door and keeping the diamonds in the gables, that might calm the front down a bit as far as what's going on with that. And then the change with the gable to the other might also calm that. And Jill's point about the brick across the front is a fair point, because most tutors don't do that. And the only reason that you would put that above there really is the ease of construction, because it's a lot easier to put stucco board and half timber on there than it is to put brick.
Right.
But a lintel is not, I mean, you've got the bricklayers out there anyway. It's not that big a deal to do that. So that might take away some of the concern on the front elevation.
Yeah, I agree. I guess my only concern is that, and I know we typically don't like to design on the fly, but given the delays, I'd hate to have them come back. I mean,
yeah,
in your opinion,
that's a simple thing to add to the motion, those two things though.
Well, we've got three. Just to be clear, we've got three changes altogether. We've got
assuming that they're willing to do it and you're willing to approve it.
So
do we need to be concerned that we're also now designing on the fly and we know that there's neighbors who can't participate, which we also had concerns with because of the power outage?
Well,
it's a fair question.
Can I offer a little bit of input here?
Sorry, who's speaking?
This is Patrick, the builder.
Oh, sorry, Patrick.
That's okay. That's okay. I think that those are good suggestions, and while I can appreciate not trying to design on the fly, I think Dan and Rhiannon would agree to doing the curvature because they wanted it anyway. Right. And when you talk about the brick, that, like you said, Hank, it's a couple lintels. It's not a big deal, and I think it'll look better as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think you guys have any opposition to that either, correct?
No, we do not.
So the only thing that we have on the table potentially, that barring everybody's getting along on this, is the diamond grids, and that's up to you.
Yeah, we'd be comfortable with that. I don't.
If we take those out, would it be the mutton bars or would it be regular windows?
It would look just like the rest of the windows that have the more traditional grid, but we're actually going to leave the crosshatch pattern on the one next to the door and the ones up in the top gables.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
And you would also leave the diamond pattern on the two going up the stairs on the east elevation, correct?
Yeah, so then all the windows along the stairs
look the same.
Would be the same,
Yeah.
would be the diamond pattern.
And then your only other two accents would be on the top gables.
Right.
Okay, so I
There's
think,
one on each gable.
Yeah,
I think
all four gables have the diamond pattern.
Yeah, I think, you know, David has a great point that we are doing a little bit of design on the fly here, and we are hamstrung a bit by some of the neighbors not being able to participate, but it's crazy times, right? So I think that's going to have to be everybody's call. So as I understand it, the motion would be that we're talking about now, or could be, to pass as presented with three exceptions: the addition of the curvature on the front porch, the portico in that gable, the change from the diamond hatch windows above the front porch to grid, and the change on the first floor above the bay window from stucco board to brick. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, the one last thing that has to be in there is pending final approval by the city engineer.
Yes, thank you. All right, well, if anybody wants to take a stab at a motion, we'll listen.
All right, I'll give it a shot. I move, this is Jill Plamper, by the way. And I may say this wrong, so help me out, Hank, but move to approve plans as per the following. Changing the 2 windows above the front porch from diamond hatch to mutton bar. Changing the Tudor work above the front bay window from Tudor to brick on the first floor. And changing the front porch accent pieces from straight to curved. Also with the approval of the grading by Noack and Fraus. Did I get everything?
I love it. You just need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, congratulations.
Thank you so
Passes.
much.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Thank you, Hank.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Okay. Moving on. Hank, you're still with us, right? We lost you for a second, but are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. So number,
I'm still here.
6, what is now number 6, matter of public hearing to amend chapter 40, zoning article 4, district regulations, section blah, 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 blah. Can you explain this a little bit?
Yeah, basically it was planted, everything was minimum 5, total 14 for side yard setbacks, okay? Then we went through a stage of development where everything was going much, much taller. So back in the day, Bonnie had figured that we wanted to have maybe a little bit more space in between the houses, and adding the 26, anything over 26, you had to take a foot, half of which has to be on the least side, and have an increased side yard setback. The problem that surfaced as a result of this is that you're getting tall, skinny houses. So, and the other part of it is that the entire city was platted, particularly in the 50 by 125 lots like we just had, where it's a minimum 5, total 14, and the side yards are small to begin with. And they're set though. Every house on the street is pretty much that, unless like the neighbor to the east on that house has a 4-foot something setback, but that house was built in 1926. So basically all this does is it takes out the language that was already removed from the regulations. This is the codicils that add on to it. So that was the one thing up. Once this is all going on, obviously there's been a couple, whatever. This is one of them. There's probably going to be another one coming next month. And basically this is just housekeeping because like as the previous one, we had something that was in the zoning ordinance and still remained, we had to get rid of that. This is one that's partly in, partly out of the zoning ordinance. And by taking this codicil out, it allows it to just read smoothly and it can't be argued, should it, shouldn't it? Because we've been interpreting it the minimum 5, total 14, like it was intended to from the Planning Commission. This wasn't something that the Planning Commission said left in. This was something that should have been taken out when Carlisle Wortman did the amendments.
So it sounds like we're just looking for a motion to remove footnote 4 from section 40-44.03.
That is, and renumber accordingly.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there that provision stated, basically something that said, if you go further up, you need more space between the houses?
That's
right?
correct.
In rough terms. Okay. Is there anything left in our current, if we eliminate this, is there anything similarly compelling in the current zoning ordinance?
No, this takes out the ambiguity. And part of the problem with it was is that if you take a look at the schedule of regulations where it has a side yard, it has the number 5, which references corner side yards. It doesn't even reference this and that. So this was just an oversight.
Well, my question still is there anything that we have in the ordinance as exists, assuming that we pass this adjustment, is there anything in the ordinance that adjusts side yard based upon height?
No.
Okay, so we're giving that up.
We're basically going back to what we had.
Back to what we had. Okay.
We already have. This is just clearing up the semantics.
Okay. I guess my question is, A, has this gone through council?
No, it goes through council after you're done with it.
Okay, so it's this is based on what, this is a question of whether we recommend this to the city commission.
City commission.
Option is an amendment.
That is correct.
That is correct. Okay, my next question is, should we have something in there that that I guess we're doing this because it's a leftover, and I want to know from the commission as a policy matter whether there should still be something in the ordinance that says the higher you go, the more space you need between the neighbors. I don't know how to formulate that. I know how it used to be, or something like what it used to be. But should there be that kind of requirement in our zoning ordinance? Crickets. Okay.
I think, Sheldon, different questions there. One is this up because obviously it's a half in, half out type of thing. And that's one question. If you want to reconsider a different mechanism for it, that's another question that the planning commission could take up.
Well, I assume we passed it in the first place because we felt it was a prudent thing to do. I appreciate the inconsistency.
The impetus for this is that, look, you're already doing this. Everything else is already minimum 5, total 14, whether it's R1D, R1B, R1C, R1E. So all of those are already the same, and there's houses in there that are 30 feet. So now you're going to do this, and you're going to force the job to be skinnier to go up to it with the peaks. So what you're doing is you're penalizing tutors, which typically have higher peaks. So it's a design issue that comes to somewhat of a problem with that. It's from a standpoint and an enforcement mechanism, I would suggest you do it. And then if you want to consider another mechanism for taking care of it, I would suggest that you review that separately.
Well, the one problem I see is as we have tear downs and new houses put in, and the majority of our houses run north-south, what we do is we really destroy one side of an existing homeowner because the setbacks are not as wide and the shadow is higher. In his house we just approved, I think it was 4.29, it wasn't even 5 feet, the setback.
The house that you just approved was 5.5 feet.
I thought one side it was,
That's the neighbor's house.
that's the neighbor's house? Okay. But it's still a 30-foot house, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Under the existing, what's the difference between the existing rules and what's here? What would be the setback requirement?
well, we're enforcing it as minimum 5, total 14.
Okay.
That's what we're using because that's what the actual numbers in the schedule of regulations says. The numbers in the schedule of regulations don't refer it, like they all have the little numbers that refer you to things. They don't even have it in there. So the average person is not going to find this anyway. My impetus in bringing this forward to try to get some clarity and do that, because we haven't, it would be difficult to say you have to enforce this when the schedule of regulation says differently and the codicil says differently, because the schedule of regulation doesn't say, see this.
All right, let me make this clear. I think I have no objection to removing the inconsistency, if that's all you're asking
So
to do.
that's
I don't want to let go of the consideration of the other issue based on, based on what we approve going forward. That's how I feel it. But and by the way, in the last plan we had, this is a side trip a little bit. We've been getting some graphics of how the current plan compares to its two neighbors. Okay, and I didn't see that in this plan in terms of comparative sizes, in terms of height and width and that sort of stuff. In the plan that we considered tonight,
The height of the one, yeah, the height on the one to the east is significantly smaller because it's a bungalow. So you're going to be running, I'm going to guess, 21 feet with that. The height of the one to the west is probably 26, 27 feet because it's a pretty tall colonial.
okay. My question was, we've been getting those as part of the drawings or some kind of a picture thing that we've been getting as part of the plans, and it wasn't included in this one. Is that part of the submission criteria or not? Hank? Earth to Hank, come in, please.
We typically do them as the plans that we have because we haven't been able to access it. The people that have been doing it can't access our basement for plans. I mean, I can't give these people plans, send them, so I can't give them the plans to give those front perspectives.
I got it.
I mean, they don't have a drawing. Like typically they would copy our drawings, draw it in and give us 3 so that they could put it in scale. There's no way to do that.
Is that on the checklist for required submissions as part of a plan? Hank?
It is, however, we couldn't produce the documents.
Understand.
So I guess, well, what do we want to, instead of all that, what do we want to do about this? I mean, you could even, whatever your guys' pleasure is, but if you want to leave the way it is, I'm going to keep interpreting the way that it is. Want me to go to the zoning board of appeals and unless you want to come up with something different. Is anybody, did I get lost again?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? This is really bad.
Hey, Jeff, what was the image you just held up? I couldn't quite make that out.
That was actually the lot. You know, so that was, if this is going to show up for you backwards, but that basically is the property. That on the right is the house on the left, and it's a white brick on the right-hand side. You know, so I mean, this is, it's going to be higher. I just worry about sunlight and how we're goofing up. If we have 5 and 26 feet, and then you go to 30 feet, and you need a setback of 8 or 9, Hank? You know, it just...
Well, you need a minimum of 9, a minimum of 5, total 14. So one side's got to be 5, one side's got to be a minimum of 9.
Okay. I'm not concerned if the houses are skinny. I'm concerned if the houses dwarf and screw up sunlight and windows of adjacent neighbors to maximize the lot.
Whatever your pleasure is, I guess I'm just not seeing that the foot makes any difference.
I don't remember us having, and maybe it's been too long since we actually did the revisions, having much discussion about that when we were doing.
Yeah, it was a very little discussion because it was a very little, it was not considered to be that big an issue. But if you guys want to revisit it, we can certainly do that. I either have to take this out or put the footnote in to the top and start enforcing it this way rather than the way that we have been enforcing it because it was not shown in there. So one way or another, there's got to be some action. If you would like to table this until the next meeting, I'm perfectly happy to get you the differences and show you, you know, whatever you need to see as far as that goes. But there's going to have to be a correction one way or another on this. If you want to take it out now and you want to revisit putting it in, you certainly can do that with a different, or, you know, you guys may come up with something totally different.
I'm going to move adoption of the requested ordinance amendment and take Hank at his word that we will address this.
Well, I can put it on the agenda for next month if you want to take it out, or you can table it. We can talk about it and then do that. The only problem is that whatever comes in between now and then, I'm going to interpret the same way that we've been interpreting it.
Okay, then that's what you do.
No, that's what I have to do. So if you want to do that, then you just put a motion to table and then I'll gather some information for you and it'll be in your next packet.
Okay, well, motion's on the floor. I don't know if it hasn't been seconded.
I did not hear the motion because I kept getting kicked out.
The motion I made was to adopt the requested, to recommend the requested ordinance amendment as you have presented.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? we're forking
Okay,
that
and
one.
then is it the pleasure of the planning commission that I go ahead and put some information or some things forward to discuss about that on the next meeting, or you don't want to hear it?
I want to hear it.
I would like.
Okay.
I think that works.
Okay, if nobody has any objections, I'll get you guys the information because that's just what we do. So.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. And the last item that we have is just an informational filing, a receive and file. That's the only motion I need on that. There's no action that the planning commission takes on it.
Okay, no motion needed.
Yeah, you do. You have to make a motion to receive and file.
Okay. Anyone want to make that motion?
I make a motion that we receive and file.
Anyone like to second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All opposed? Okay, received and filed.
Thank you.
Do we have any public left to participate? We'll open that up real quick. Hearing none, we will close public participation. And Hank, unless I've missed anything on here, we'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
That is correct.
Actually, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Hank, do we have any expectation for how the June meeting is going to go?
I have the site plans that didn't actually make it to this meeting that are supposed to come in. What I'm trying to do with these is to get them to a point where you can feasibly approve them. Some of the ones that we had on tap for this month, which I anticipated quite a bit, 2 people didn't get back to me. One, I know the financing changed based on what's going on now. And another one, which was supposed to be on, just the changes they made were worse than what they were supposed to. So it wasn't, there was no way I was going to suggest that you look at that.
Hank, at this point, are we prohibited from holding this meeting in person by the governor's order, or is this for, okay.
Because right now you can only have gatherings of 10 or more, and I still have to notice it. So if it's in effect while I have to notice it, you got 9 sitting right there, and I'm 10.
But does
So
that
means
apply
nobody-
to city? Does that apply to city business?
It applies to everything. So even if you
doesn't
had
apply to
that-
Home Depot.
So, yeah, tell me about it. But it's a gathering for a meeting specifically, and it wouldn't be, and I can't even do it down at the rec center. I even checked with the city attorney, and the city attorney said do not. So
Okay.
That's where we're at with that.
So presumably June will be through Zoom as well.
Yeah, it's at this point, because once I notice it, I have to follow up on it, but I can't risk not noticing it for Zoom and then throw a Zoom meeting together. I'll miss my notice altogether. I can always change the location from a Zoom to an in-person meeting should that happen, but I can't do it in reverse.
Do we need any formal action? How likely are we to exceed the 5 limit?
I would just use the approval that you've given already for it. I don't know that you will. I think you might get 2 to 3 out of the others that we had, but I don't know if the financing one is going to come back at all.
Okay.
So other than that, that's all I have for you folks.
Okay.
I have,
Anyone like?
I have
sorry,
one
Kim.
other, Hank, I think is
Yeah,
aware
sure,
of this,
Kim.
and I may need to still give you a formal letter, but I
Yes, you do.
will let my peers know that I will be resigning from the Planning Commission and won't be out at the next meeting, I don't believe, because my house will be sold by that point and I will no longer be a Huntington Woods resident.
We will miss you.
Congrats.
I will miss
Yeah,
Huntington Woods
congrats.
as well.
Where are you going?
Detroit.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll miss you, but congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats.
Is the house sold?
Yeah, fingers crossed, down to the appraisal at this point, but
Good.
Offer and negotiations are done.
That was fast.
Yes, it was.
It's a crazy time to try to sell a house.
Yes, it is. I feel very fortunate that, yeah, it went on the market last Sunday and I just signed off on the addendum on the offer.
Wow.
So that's a good thing. Now we'll see what the appraisal process looks like in this craziness.
So Hank, does that get noticed to the city somehow that spot becomes available?
Yeah, I got to have a paper. I got to have it in
Okay.
paper, and the city commission has to accept the resignation. At that point in time, they'll fill it at the next available opportunity. But there are people waiting for the planning commission. I don't anticipate it'll be vacant long, but that requires a city commission action.
Okay, then I will get you something in writing so you can begin that process.
So if I refuse it, does that mean you stay?
Am I allowed to serve on the commission without being a resident?
Nah, but we'd love to
Didn't
have
think
you.
so. I'd do it if I could, so
Maybe we can get you a PO box or something.
there you go.
Right. Well,
I'll
thank you very much.
rent a
Kim.
room in Hank's basement.
God, you don't want to be in my basement.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks, I've
Thanks,
enjoyed this
Kim.
committee.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn? Seems like that's Kim's job.
So moved.
All in
Motion
favor?
to adjourn.
Second.
Hi.
All opposed?
Your last official action.
There we go.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you guys later. Thank you again.
Hey, Hank,
Yeah.
real quick, have you heard anything from Parks and Rec if they're ever going to unlock the tennis courts?
I do not know. At this point in time, I have no oh, wait, hold on. Amy Sullivan's here. Hold on. You caught her. We both had separate meetings here tonight, but she's right here. I'll let her weigh in.
Following the guidance of the U.S. Tennis Association, would suggest that communities be in the first phase of the reopening, which requires a 14-day downward trajectory of cases. So we check the Oakland County dashboard occasionally, and it has been not going down 14 days. Last time I checked, it went down for 5 straight days. So once it hits that 14-day drop, we'll open them up.
So every other city around here is opening them up, but we're not going to?
Yeah, we're not. We, there's no clear guidance on whether or not to open them, and we're going more cautious than the other communities. But now that we have some parameter or standard that we're going to use based on U.S. Tennis Association, I'm confident that we're making the best decision that we can.
So USTA has just put out a whole guidance that said tennis is safe and made recommendations. You guys aren't going to go by that?
Well, their first recommendation was make sure that you are in the first phase of reopening, and the government, the country, and then have only family members play with each other, which obviously is not going to be something that we're going to be able to control. So we're going with the make sure you're in the first phase of reopening.
Okay. All right. So I will resign myself to just driving to Birmingham then.
Sorry.
No, it's just odd. Birmingham's opened them, Bloomfield's opened them, Berkeley's opened them. It's tennis. It's not a contact sport. You're on one side of the net and you're on the other side of the net, and there's a big distance between you. And you can do it with balls that are marked for yourself if that's, what they suggest that you do. It just seems odd that an outdoor activity like that is being cut off. I get that you don't want kids touching play equipment and stuff like that, but you're on a court and you're on opposite sides of it, and there's a big distance between you. It just seems odd.
I agree that there's a total lack of consistency between cities, and that's been really infuriating. Some have benches that are open, some have benches that are closed, some have parks that are closed completely, some just have playground equipment. There has been no consistent policy. That would be great if somebody could step in and give us some guidance on that. But short of that, we are winging it, and we're going the cautious route.
Okay, I was just curious. I just figured if you guys could answer it rather than my bugging Mary Gustafson.
Yeah, actually putting this information out in the e-blast this week.
Okay.
We are getting questions on why we made the decision that we did.
Yeah, it's, you know, I mean, my thing is if you're worried about the benches, take them off. There's only 2, you know, just there aren't really, you know, I think each set of courts has 1 to 2 benches. Like, I think the rec center has 2 and the 11 mile courts have 1. So take the benches out, no big deal. But you know, it's just, you can't even go and hit against the wall if you want to, so frustrating.
Any other questions?
Nope, that's just my tennis bitch.
All
right. My sport back, people. I want my sport. And I'm tired of having to drive up to the Birmingham Country Club to do it.
Aw. All right.
Yeah, I have actually a question for either Amy or Hank. Will there be any, someone asked me this the other day, strangely enough, will there be any sort of block party, socially distanced kind of permits allowed for the 4th of July?
Amy, did you hear that?
Good question.
Blake, right? Who am I looking at?
Blake.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm not seeing a picture, so I'm listening to a voice. He wanted to know if there'll be block parties allowed for 4th of July.
We're gonna have to wait till it gets closer. Right now, the executive order from the governor says groups of 10 or more can congregate, but nothing
10 or less,
greater than 10.
not 10 or more, 10 or
Right,
less.
10 or less.
Well, I'm sorry, 10 or less. So depends on how many people can gather, you know, closer to the 4th of July.
Sure.
I'm not real confident that parties are going to be permitted, and so I wouldn't get my hopes up.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much. It came up. I just thought I would ask.
Right.
Fair question.
Thanks, Hank.
Yep.
All right.
Guys, thank you very much. Have a
All
good
right,
evening.
we'll see y'all later. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.